The massive observation deck stretched for miles across the Galactic Council station. Through the transparent walls, a dying star burned bright red against the darkness of space. Commander Marcus Chen stood at the viewing window, his hands clasped behind his back as he watched the star pulse with unstable energy. Around him, dozens of alien species moved through the chamber. The air buzzed with different languages and the sound of various breathing apparatus. Some aliens walked on two legs like humans. Others crawled on many legs or floated in small atmosphere bubbles. The smell in the air was strange, a mix of different gases that each species needed to breathe. Marcus had been waiting for 3 hours. The Galactic Council was known for making new species wait. It was part of their process. They wanted to see how different races handled stress and boredom. For humans, this was their first official meeting with the galaxy's governing body. The human delegation may now approach, a voice announced in perfect English. The translation device in Marcus's ear made all the alien languages sound like his native tongue. Marcus walked across the smooth floor toward the center of the chamber. His boots made soft clicking sounds that echoed in the vast space. He wore his best diplomatic uniform, dark blue with gold trim. No weapons as required by council law. His only items were a datapad and a small pin showing Earth's flag. The council members sat in a wide circle around a raised platform. Marcus counted 47 different species. Some looked almost human with slight changes, different colored skin, extra eyes, or unusual ears. Others were completely alien. One looked like a giant spider made of crystal. Another appeared to be a floating ball of gas with tentacles. At the security station, Zixara watched the human carefully. She was the council's head of security, responsible for keeping peace during meetings. Her species, the Kethai, had evolved from small prey animals on a world full of predators. Her large, compound eyes could see in almost every direction at once. Her thin, chitinous body was covered in natural armor that clicked when she moved. Zixara had studied the human files for weeks. Earth was what the council called a death world, a planet so dangerous that most galactic species would die there within hours. High gravity, deadly weather, poisonous plants, and aggressive animals filled every part of it. Yet somehow humans had not just survived, but built a civilization. The humans were physically weak compared to most species. They had no natural armor, no claws, no poison, no ability to see in the dark. Their bones broke easily. Their skin tore from simple cuts. They could only hold their breath for a few minutes underwater. They needed exactly the right temperature or they would die. They required a very specific mixture of gases to breathe. But they had built machines that could fly between stars. They had art, music, and literature. They had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and natural disasters that would have destroyed stronger species. The council could not understand how such fragile beings had accomplished so much. Marcus reached the center platform and stopped. He did not bow or show fear. He simply stood straight and waited for the council to speak. "Human Marcus Chen," said the council speaker, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms. "You represent your species before this assembly. We will ask questions. You will answer truthfully." "I understand," Marcus replied. His voice was calm and steady. "Your species seeks membership in our council. Why should we accept a race from a death world? What can you offer that we do not already have?" Marcus had practiced this answer many times. "We offer our perspective and our experience. We have faced challenges that other species have not. We have learned to adapt and survive in difficult situations. We believe this experience could be valuable to the council." Several council members made sounds that the translator could not convert. Zixara recognized them as expressions of doubt or amusement. The humans were so small and weak. What could they possibly offer to species that could live for thousands of years or had technology beyond human understanding? As Marcus continued to answer questions, alarms began to sound throughout the station. Soft at first, then louder. Red lights started flashing on the walls. Zixara's compound eyes immediately turned toward her security displays. Her body tensed as her natural prey instincts kicked in. "Stellar instability detected," announced the station's computer. "All non-essential personnel report to safety pods immediately." The star outside the observation deck was beginning to pulse faster. Its red light grew brighter with each pulse. Solar flares erupted from its surface, sending waves of radiation toward the station. Most council members immediately stood and moved toward the emergency exits. Their various forms of movement, walking, crawling, floating, slithering, created chaos as they hurried to reach safety. Some of the smaller species cried out in fear. The smell of panic pheromones filled the air. Zixara watched her displays as the star continued to destabilize. The radiation levels were climbing rapidly. The station's shields were holding, but they would not last long if the star exploded. She needed to coordinate the evacuation and ensure all species reached their appropriate safety pods. But as she looked toward the observation platform, she saw something that made her stop. The human was still standing there. Marcus had not moved from the center of the platform. He continued to watch the dying star through the transparent walls. His breathing remained steady. His heart rate, which Zixara could monitor through the station's sensors, had barely increased. He showed no signs of the fear response that was driving every other species to flee. "Human," Zixara called out, her voice carrying the clicking sounds of her species' language even through the translator. "You must reach the safety pods immediately." Marcus turned toward her. His face showed no panic, no terror, no desperate need to escape. Instead, he looked curious. "Is there immediate danger to the station?" he asked. "The star is becoming unstable. It could explode at any moment. The radiation will kill anyone not in proper shelter. How long do we have?" Zixara checked her displays. "Perhaps 20 minutes before the radiation becomes lethal. Less if the star goes supernova. Then we have time," Marcus said. He walked calmly toward the observation window and looked out at the star. "I have never seen a star die before. It is quite beautiful." Zixara felt her exoskeleton click rapidly with nervous energy. This was not normal behavior. Every intelligent species in the galaxy had a proper fear response to mortal danger. It was how they had survived to develop space travel. Yet this human stood watching their potential death as if it were entertainment. Another alarm sounded. 15 minutes to critical radiation levels, the computer announced. "Human, you must move now," Zixara insisted. Marcus finally turned away from the window. But instead of running toward the safety pods, he walked over to where the council speaker had dropped a data pad in their hurry to evacuate. He picked it up and looked around the chamber for any other dropped items. "What are you doing?" Zixara asked. "The council members left some of their materials behind. They will want these items back after the danger passes." Zixara stared at him with all her compound eyes. "You are collecting lost items while a star prepares to kill us? The star will either explode or it will not," Marcus said simply. "If it explodes, we will die whether we panic or stay calm. If it does not explode, the council members will appreciate having their belongings returned. I prefer to use the time productively." The security chief felt something she had never experienced before. It was not fear, she was very familiar with fear. It was confusion so deep it made her question everything she thought she knew about intelligent life. 10 minutes to critical radiation levels. The computer announced Marcus had finished collecting the dropped items. He finally began walking toward the emergency exits, but his pace remained unhurried. "Shall we head to the safety pods now?" he asked Zixara politely. She could only stare at him as they walked together down the corridor. Every instinct in her body screamed that this human should be terrified. But he moved as if they were taking a casual stroll rather than fleeing for their lives. The emergency shelter was small and cramped. It had been designed for one large council member or several small ones. With both Marcus and Zixara inside, there was barely room to move. The walls were thick metal designed to block deadly radiation. Small lights provided dim illumination. Air recyclers hummed softly as they worked to keep the atmosphere breathable for both species. Zixara pressed herself against one wall, her compound eyes constantly moving to watch every corner of the shelter. Her natural instincts made it impossible for her to relax even in safety. Every sound made her exoskeleton click with nervous energy. The shelter was secure, but her mind still raced with thoughts of danger. Marcus sat calmly on a small bench built into the opposite wall. He had placed the collected council items neatly beside him. From his pocket, he pulled out a small device and began checking their current situation. The screen showed radiation levels, air quality, and estimated time until the all-clear signal. "Current radiation outside is at lethal levels," he reported quietly, "but the shelter is holding perfectly. We should be safe here." Zixara's head turned toward him sharply. "Should be safe, should be? How can you speak so casually about our survival?" "Because worrying will not change our situation," Marcus replied. He continued studying the device. The shelter was built to withstand this type of event. Either it will protect us or it will not. My fear cannot make the walls stronger. The security chief watched him with growing bewilderment. In her species' long history, fear had kept them alive. Fear made them run faster from predators. Fear made them hide better when danger approached. Fear made them fight harder when escape was impossible. Without fear, her ancestors would have been eaten long before they developed intelligence. Your species evolved on a death world, Zixara said slowly. You must understand danger better than most. Why do you not show proper respect for it? Marcus looked up from his device. In the dim light, his face appeared thoughtful rather than concerned. We understand danger very well, perhaps better than any species in the galaxy. Then why do you not fear it? Who says I do not fear it? This answer surprised Zixara. She had been monitoring his biological signs since they entered the shelter. His heart rate remained steady. His breathing was slow and regular. His skin temperature had not changed. Her equipment showed none of the chemical signals that indicated fear in most species. Your body shows no signs of fear response, she said. Human fear responses are different from yours, Marcus explained. We do not show fear the same way other species do. Outside the shelter, the dying star pulsed with increasing violence. Each pulse sent waves of deadly radiation through space. The station's shields flickered with each impact, working hard to protect the thousands of beings inside. Warning alarms continued to sound throughout the station, though they were muffled by the shelter's thick walls. Zixara tried to understand what the human was telling her. You feel fear but do not show it? We feel fear, Marcus confirmed. But we learned long ago that showing fear often makes situations worse. A frightened person makes poor decisions. They run when they should fight. They fight when they should run. They panic when they should think. But fear keeps you alive. Fear makes you avoid danger. Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. Fear can keep you alive, yes. But it can also keep you from living. My species learned to feel the fear, acknowledge it, and then act despite it. Zixara's compound eyes studied his face carefully. She was trained to read expressions and body language from dozens of species. But humans were new to her and their emotional displays were subtle compared to most aliens. I do not understand, she admitted. Fear is the most basic survival instinct. It exists to protect life. How can you simply ignore it? We do not ignore it, Marcus said patiently. We use it differently. The lights in the shelter flickered as another wave of radiation hit the station's shields. Emergency power systems activated, casting strange shadows on the walls. Zixara's clicking increased as her anxiety grew. Even in the safety of the shelter, her body prepared for danger that might never come. Marcus noticed her distress. Are you uncomfortable? He asked. Of course I am uncomfortable, Zixara snapped. We are trapped in a small space while deadly energy tries to kill us. The star could explode completely at any moment. The shelter could fail. The station could lose power. How are you not terrified? I am concerned, Marcus said carefully. But terror would not help our situation. Concern? Concern? Zixara's voice rose higher. This is not a minor problem to be concerned about. This is mortal danger. This could be death. Yes, it could be. The simple way he said those words made Zixara stop clicking entirely. She stared at him in complete silence for several seconds. Finally, she spoke in a whisper. You truly do not fear death. I did not say that. Marcus set down his device and looked directly at her. I fear death very much. Every human does. We are born knowing we will die. We spend our entire lives aware that death is coming for us. Then why do you not run from it? Why do you not fight it with everything you have? Because running and fighting are not always the best responses to death. Zixara felt her mind struggling to process this concept. In her species' philosophy, all life was dedicated to avoiding death for as long as possible. They built better shelters, stronger weapons, faster ships. They created medicines to fight disease and technology to protect against accidents. Every advance in their civilization was designed to push death further away. What else is there besides running or fighting? She asked. Marcus smiled slightly. It was a gentle expression that Zixara had learned meant kindness in humans. There is accepting. Accepting death? Accepting that death will come eventually, no matter what we do. Once you truly accept that fact, you can stop wasting energy on impossible fights. You can use that energy for something more important. What could be more important than survival? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Outside, the star continued its violent death throes. The shelter shook slightly with each impact of radiation against the station's shields. But inside their small protected space, the humans seemed completely at peace. Living, he finally answered. Surviving and living are not the same thing. Survival is avoiding death. Living is choosing what to do with the time you have before death arrives. Zixara felt something shift in her understanding. It was small, like a crack appearing in a wall she had never questioned. For her entire life, survival had been the highest goal. Stay alive, reproduce, protect the young, advance the species. Death was the enemy to be defeated at all costs. But this human spoke of death as if it were simply a fact, like gravity or the speed of light. Not good or bad, not to be feared or welcomed, just inevitable. Your species lives such short lives, she said quietly. Humans rarely survive more than 100 years. My people can live for 500 years. Some council species live for thousands. With so little time, how can you not spend every moment fighting for more? Marcus picked up his device again and checked their status. The radiation levels were beginning to decrease. The star was still unstable, but the immediate crisis was passing. Because, he said without looking up from the screen, we learned something very important about time. It is not how much time you have that matters. It is what you do with the time you are given. The radiation levels continued to drop slowly. Marcus monitored the readings on his device while Zixara struggled with thoughts she had never experienced before. The silence between them grew heavy with unspoken questions. Finally, the security chief could not contain her confusion any longer. Tell me about your species, she said suddenly. Tell me how being so fragile became so different. Marcus looked up from his device. Different how? You do not flee from danger like prey species. You do not attack it like predator species. You do not hide from it like most intelligent races. What are you? Marcus set the device aside and leaned back against the shelter wall. We are persistence hunters. I do not know this term. Long ago, before we built cities or farms, humans survived by chasing prey animals until they collapsed from exhaustion. We were not fast enough to catch them quickly. We were not strong enough to kill them in combat. But we could run for hours while they could only sprint for minutes. Zixara tried to imagine this hunting method. Her own ancestors had survived by hiding and running away from predators. The idea of deliberately chasing something larger and stronger seemed insane. You would follow dangerous animals until they became too tired to fight? Exactly. A human hunter could track an antelope across vast distances. The antelope was faster and stronger, but it would eventually need to rest. The human would keep coming hour after hour, day after day if necessary. Eventually the prey would be too exhausted to run anymore. But that seems so inefficient. Why not use tools to kill from a distance? We did develop tools eventually, but the hunting method shaped how we think about problems. We learned that many challenges cannot be solved with speed or strength. They require endurance and patience. The shelter shook again as another wave of radiation hit the station. But this time the impact was weaker. The star outside was slowly stabilizing as it settled into a new phase of its death. I still do not understand how this relates to fear, Zixara said. Marcus smiled again. Imagine you are an antelope being hunted by early humans. You can run much faster than they can. You have better hearing, better sight, stronger muscles. Every instinct tells you that you are superior to these slow, weak creatures chasing you. Yes, I would feel safe. But then you discover that they do not stop. You run until your lungs burn and your legs shake. You hide in dense brush where they cannot see you. You cross rivers where they cannot smell your trail. You do everything your instincts tell you to do. But they keep coming. Zixara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the shelter's temperature. They would never give up. Never. Hours pass, days pass. You are exhausted beyond anything you have ever experienced. Your body is shutting down from fatigue. And still you hear them behind you, still moving forward, still tracking your trail. What would you feel then? Terror, Zixara whispered. Pure terror. That is what every predator on Earth learned to feel when they saw humans. Not because we were stronger or faster or more dangerous in any physical way, but because we simply would not stop. We would chase a mammoth for days until it collapsed. We would track a saber-toothed cat until it was too tired to fight. We became the thing that other creatures had nightmares about. Marcus paused to check the radiation readings again. The levels were dropping steadily now. They would be safe to leave the shelter soon. But we also learned something important about ourselves during those hunts, he continued. We discovered that fear, exhaustion, pain, and even the certainty of death could not stop us if we chose to keep going. Your species chose to ignore survival instincts? No, we chose to override them when necessary. We still felt fear when we tracked dangerous prey. We still felt pain when we were injured during hunts. We still felt exhaustion when our bodies wanted to quit. But we also learned that feelings and actions are not the same thing. Zixara tilted her head, trying to process this concept. You can feel fear but choose not to act on it. Fear tells you that something is dangerous. That is useful information, but fear also tells you to run away or freeze in place. That is not always the best choice. Sometimes the best choice is to move forward despite the fear. That sounds like madness. Perhaps it is, Marcus admitted, but it is effective madness. Our ability to act against our instincts allowed us to survive in places where stronger species died out. When ice ages came, we did not wait for the cold to pass. We moved to follow the warmth, even into unknown territories full of new dangers. The shelter's communication system crackled to life. Radiation levels now within safe parameters, announced the station's computer. Shelter occupants may exit when ready, but neither Marcus nor Zixara moved toward the door. The security chief was too absorbed in trying to understand what the human was telling her. Your species deliberately chose difficult paths? We chose the paths that led to survival, even when they were difficult. When diseases killed millions of our people, we did not accept defeat. We studied the diseases and found ways to fight them. When wars devastated our cities, we did not abandon civilization. We rebuilt and tried to do better. But surely you must have felt despair during such terrible times. Of course we felt despair. We felt fear, hopelessness, grief, and every other emotion that intelligent beings experience. But we also felt something else. What? Marcus was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Hope. Hope? The belief that things could be better, even when all evidence suggested they could not. Hope is perhaps the most irrational emotion that exists. It makes no logical sense to believe that tomorrow will be better than today, when today is full of suffering. But hope is what kept humans moving forward when every reasonable analysis said we should give up. Zixara tried to understand this concept. Her species had always been guided by logical analysis of probability and risk. They made decisions based on likely outcomes and statistical evidence. The idea of acting on belief rather than data seemed completely foreign. You made important decisions based on irrational hope. We made decisions based on the possibility that things could change for the better, even when that possibility was very small. But what if you were wrong? What if your hope was false and you suffered for nothing? Marcus looked directly at her with an expression she could not read. What if we were right? The simple question hit Zixara like a physical blow. She realized that she had been thinking about the problem backwards. She had been focusing on all the ways that hope could lead to disaster, but she had not considered all the ways that despair guaranteed failure. If you give up, Marcus continued, you are certain to fail. If you keep trying, you might fail, but you also might succeed. For humans, the choice was always obvious. Even when success seemed impossible, especially then, the impossible simply takes longer to achieve. Zixara felt that crack in her understanding grow wider. Everything she had been taught about intelligent behavior suggested that humans should have gone extinct long ago. They were too weak, too short-lived, too willing to take terrible risks for uncertain rewards. Yet they had not only survived, but thrived. You are telling me that your species conquered a death world through hope and stubbornness? Hope, stubbornness, and one other thing, Marcus said. What? The understanding that the universe does not care whether we live or die. Stars explode, planets freeze, asteroids fall, diseases spread, and wars begin without any concern for our feelings about it. The universe is not trying to kill us specifically. It simply does not notice us at all. That sounds terrifying. It is also liberating. If the universe does not care about our survival, then our survival is entirely up to us. We cannot blame fate or gods or cosmic justice when things go wrong, but we also cannot rely on outside help when we face challenges. Everything we accomplish is because we chose to accomplish it. Marcus stood up and walked to the shelter door. He pressed his hand against the exit panel but did not activate it yet. So when you ask me why I am not afraid, you are asking the wrong question, he said quietly. I am afraid. I have been afraid every moment since the alarms started, but I am not controlled by that fear because my species learned something very important about the universe. What did you learn? Marcus looked back at her one final time before opening the door. We learned that the universe will kill us eventually no matter what we do, so we might as well make it work for the privilege. The shelter door opened with a soft hiss. Marcus stepped out first, looking calmly around the corridor. Emergency lights cast long shadows on the walls. The air smelled of ozone and heated metal from the radiation bombardment. Zixara followed behind him, her compound eyes darting nervously in all directions despite knowing the danger had passed. As they walked back toward the main sections of the station, Zixara's communication device began receiving reports from around the facility. Most of the council members had reached safety without incident. A few minor injuries had occurred during the evacuation, but nothing serious. The station's shields had held perfectly throughout the crisis, but then more serious reports began coming through. Section 7 has a hull breach, announced a voice over the communication system. Radiation leak detected in corridors 12 through 15. Emergency repair crews needed immediately. Marcus stopped walking. How bad is the leak? Zixara checked her readings. Bad enough to kill most species within minutes of exposure. The emergency crews are having trouble reaching the area. The radiation levels are too high even for their protective suits. What about humans? The security chief looked at him with confusion. What do you mean? How long could a human survive in those radiation levels? Zixara quickly ran calculations on her device. Perhaps 15 minutes before severe illness. 30 minutes before death. Why are you asking? But Marcus was already moving toward the damaged section. Zixara hurried to follow him, her exoskeleton clicking rapidly with alarm. Where are you going? She called after him. To help with the repairs. You cannot. The radiation will kill you. Marcus continued walking at the same steady pace he had maintained throughout the crisis. You said I have 15 minutes before severe illness. That should be enough time to assess the damage and begin emergency patches. They reached the checkpoint leading to Section 7. A group of the station's maintenance crew stood outside the sealed blast doors. They belonged to a species called the Vorthak, large, heavily armored beings who could normally survive environments that would kill most other races. But even they could not enter the contaminated area. The crew chief, a massive creature named Thektar, recognized Zixara and approached her quickly. Security chief, we cannot reach the breach. The radiation levels are beyond our tolerance. If we do not seal it within the next hour, the leak will spread to the main life support systems. What about remote repair drones? Zixara asked, all destroyed by the initial radiation pulse. We need someone to go in manually and activate the emergency sealing system. Marcus stepped forward. I volunteer. Thektar looked down at the small human with what might have been amusement. Little being, you would die before reaching the breach point. Maybe, Marcus agreed. But I might also succeed. What other options do you have? Before anyone could answer, more alarms began sounding. This time they came from a different section of the station. Emergency in Section 12, announced the computer. Artificial gravity systems failing. All personnel evacuate immediately. Zixara felt her compound eyes widen as she received more detailed reports. Section 12 housed the station's primary schools and nurseries. Hundreds of young aliens from dozens of species were trapped in an area where gravity was becoming unstable. Without proper support, many of them would be injured or killed as they were thrown against walls and ceilings. How long until gravity fails completely? Marcus asked. 20 minutes, Zixara replied automatically, then stopped. Why are you asking that? But Marcus was already studying a station map on a nearby display panel. If someone could reach the manual gravity controls, could they stabilize the system? Yes, but the control room is in the center of the affected area. The gravity fluctuations would make it impossible to walk there safely. What about crawling? Thektar made a sound that the translator indicated was frustrated laughter. Human, you seem determined to die today. You cannot solve both problems. Choose one. Marcus looked thoughtful. Actually, I think they might be connected. If I repair the radiation breach first, would that free up power for the gravity systems? Zixara checked her displays. Possibly, yes. The radiation leak is draining emergency power reserves, but you cannot survive long enough to complete both repairs. One problem at a time, Marcus said simply. He walked toward the equipment lockers and began selecting a radiation protection suit. 3 other humans appeared in the corridor. They were part of the Earth Diplomatic Mission's technical team. Unlike Marcus, they showed clear signs of stress. Faster breathing, tense muscles, quick movements. But they immediately approached him when they saw what he was doing. Commander, said a young woman with short dark hair, we received the emergency reports. How can we help? Lieutenant Chen, Marcus replied as he checked the radiation suit's seals. I need you to coordinate with station engineering on the gravity problem. Torres, you handle communications with the evacuation teams. Williams, you work with security to establish safe zones for any other emergencies. What about the radiation breach, sir? Asked Torres. I will handle that personally. The three humans exchanged glances. Zixara could see fear in their expressions, the kind of normal, healthy fear that most intelligent species showed when facing mortal danger. But she also saw something else. Determination. They were afraid. But they were not paralyzed by their fear. Sir, said Lieutenant Chen carefully, your chance of surviving the radiation exposure is very low. Yes, it is. And if you die, the diplomatic mission will fail. That is one possible outcome. Chen looked directly at her commander. Should we contact Earth for instructions? Marcus finished sealing his radiation suit and picked up the emergency repair kit. By the time we receive instructions from Earth, hundreds of children will be dead. I cannot live with that possibility. Even if it means your own death. Marcus paused at the blast door controls. For the first time since Zixara had met him, she saw something that might have been uncertainty cross his face, but it lasted only a moment. Lieutenant, he said quietly, what is the primary mission of the human diplomatic team? To establish peaceful relations with alien species and demonstrate that humanity can be trusted as a galactic neighbor. Chen replied formally. And what better way to demonstrate trust than to risk human lives protecting alien children? With that, Marcus activated the blast doors and walked into the irradiated corridor. The heavy doors sealed shut behind him, leaving the others to watch his progress on monitoring screens. Zixara stared at the displays showing Marcus's radiation exposure levels. The numbers climbed steadily as he made his way toward the breach. His movement remained calm and purposeful, even as invisible energy slowly poisoned his cells. Why did he not wait for help? She asked Lieutenant Chen. The young human woman looked surprised by the question. Help from whom? Other humans. Your government. The Council's emergency teams. There was no time to wait, Chen replied. Children were in danger. That makes the choice simple for humans. Simple? He is going to die to save aliens he has never met. Yes, he might die, but if he does nothing, those children will definitely die. For Commander Chen, that is not an acceptable option. On the screens, Marcus reached the radiation breach. The hole in the station's hull was larger than expected, nearly 2 meters across. Space showed through the gap like a window into the void. Emergency force fields flickered weakly around the edges, trying to contain the radiation pouring in from the dying star outside. Zixara watched in fascination as Marcus began working. His movements were efficient and precise despite the deadly environment. He sealed smaller cracks first, then began assembling the emergency patch for the main breach. His radiation readings continued to climb toward lethal levels. His exposure is becoming critical, Zixara reported. Understood, Chen replied calmly. Commander, you have approximately 3 minutes before mandatory evacuation. Marcus's voice came through the communication system, slightly distorted by interference from the radiation. Patch assembly is 60% complete. I need 5 more minutes. Sir, 5 minutes will exceed safe exposure limits, I know. But the patch will hold if I can finish it properly. Zixara felt something twist in her chest that she had never experienced before. It was admiration mixed with incomprehension. She was watching a being deliberately sacrifice himself for others, and he spoke about it as if he were discussing the weather. Commander, she called over the communication system. This is Security Chief Zixara. You do not have to do this. The Council has other emergency procedures. What procedures? Marcus asked as he continued working. Zixara hesitated. The truth was that the Council's emergency procedures involved sealing off damaged sections and writing off anyone trapped inside. It was efficient and logical. It saved the maximum number of lives with minimal risk to rescuers. We could evacuate the affected areas and seal them off until the radiation dissipates. Naturally, she said finally. How long would that take? Several days. And the children in Section 12? Would be relocated to other areas of the station. Marcus completed another section of the patch. His exposure readings were now in the red zone, indicating severe radiation poisoning was beginning to occur. How many children would die during the relocation process? He asked. Zixara checked the evacuation estimates. Her stomach, if she had possessed such an ore 3 days later. The Galactic Council reconvened in their main assembly chamber. The dying star outside had stabilized into a white dwarf. no longer threatening the station. Normal operations had resumed throughout the facility. The breach in Section 7 had been permanently repaired, and the children in Section 12 were safely back in their regular activities. Marcus sat in the human delegation area, looking pale but alert. The medical treatments had successfully counteracted most of the radiation poisoning, though he would need several more weeks to fully recover. His diplomatic uniform was freshly pressed, and he wore the same calm expression he had maintained throughout the crisis. Around the chamber, representatives from 47 species had gathered to vote on humanity's application for council membership. But the atmosphere was different from their first meeting. Instead of curiosity mixed with doubt, Zixara sensed something closer to unease among many of the delegates. The council speaker, the tall blue-skinned being with 4 arms, called the session to order. "We are here to conclude the evaluation of the human species for potential council membership. Before we vote, delegates may make statements regarding their decision." The first to speak was Thektar, the massive Vorthak who had led the emergency repair crews. His heavy voice rumbled through the chamber's translation systems. "I have worked in station maintenance for over 200 years, he began. "I have seen many species handle emergencies. Most flee to safety and wait for trained professionals to resolve problems. This is logical and efficient." Thektar paused, looking directly at Marcus. The human did not wait. He entered a contaminated area that would have killed most of us within minutes. He completed repairs that saved hundreds of lives. "I have never seen such behavior from any species." Another delegate stood up. This was Shirar, a crystalline being whose species communicated through light patterns. The translator converted her flashing colors into words. "The human's actions were mathematically irrational," Shirar stated. "The probability of success was low. The cost of failure was high. No logical analysis would support such a decision, yet somehow the irrational choice produced the optimal outcome." More delegates began to speak. Some praised the human actions as heroic. Others expressed concern about what they called reckless behavior. A few suggested that humans were too unpredictable to be trusted with council responsibilities. Zixara listened to the debate while watching Marcus carefully. The human showed no signs of pride in the praise or offense at the criticism. He simply sat quietly, occasionally taking notes on his data pad. Finally, the council speaker called for Zixara to present the security evaluation. As head of station security, her report would carry significant weight in the final decision. She walked to the center platform where Marcus had stood just days before. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice clicking slightly with nervous energy. "I have completed a thorough analysis of human behavior under crisis conditions. My findings are unexpected." She activated a holographic display showing data from the emergency. Charts and graphs filled the air around her, showing response times, decision patterns, and biological stress indicators. When the stellar crisis began, 46 species immediately sought safety as their primary priority. This is normal and expected behavior. The 47th species, humans, prioritize the safety of others over their own survival. This is unprecedented in council records. A murmur went through the chamber. Some delegates exchanged glances that clearly expressed discomfort with this information. The human delegate, Marcus Chen, made decisions that violated every standard model of intelligent self-preservation, yet these decisions resulted in the optimal outcomes for station safety and civilian protection. Zixara paused the display and looked around the chamber. "I must ask the council to consider a disturbing possibility. Perhaps our models of intelligent behavior are incomplete." The chamber fell silent. This was not a statement any delegate had expected from the normally conservative security chief. "For billions of years," Zixara continued, "we have assumed that intelligence leads to logical decision-making based on survival probability. We have built our entire galactic civilization on the principle that rational beings will choose self-preservation over other concerns." She gestured toward Marcus. "The humans have shown us a different model. They make decisions based on principles that transcend individual survival. They will risk death to protect strangers. They will sacrifice certain safety for uncertain hopes of helping others." Another delegate, a gas-based life form named Veltar, interrupted with a question. "Are you suggesting that human behavior is superior to our own?" Zixara considered the question carefully before answering. I am suggesting that human behavior reveals possibilities we never considered. What if intelligence can evolve beyond pure self-interest? What if the highest form of rational thought includes the welfare of others as equal to one's own welfare? The chamber erupted in discussion. Some delegates argued loudly in their native languages while translation systems struggled to keep up. Others sat in contemplative silence, processing concepts they had never encountered before. Council Speaker raised all four arms to restore order. Security Chief Zixara, what is your official recommendation regarding human membership? Zixara looked at Marcus one more time. The human met her gaze with the same calm expression he had shown throughout the crisis. In his eyes she saw no fear of rejection, no desperate hope for acceptance. He seemed genuinely at peace with whatever decision the council might make. Honored Speaker, she said slowly, I believe we are asking the wrong question. Explain. We have been debating whether humans are worthy of joining our council, but after observing their behavior under extreme stress, I think the real question is whether we are ready for them. The chamber fell completely silent. Even the background hum of life support systems seemed muted. Zixara continued. The human species has capabilities we do not understand and may not be able to match. They can function effectively while experiencing levels of fear that would paralyze most of our species. They make decisions based on principles rather than survival calculations. They will accept personal destruction to achieve goals that benefit others. She paused, choosing her final words carefully. If we admit humans to our council, we must be prepared for them to challenge every assumption we have made about intelligent behavior. They will propose solutions that seem impossible. They will volunteer for missions that appear suicidal. They will ask us to risk everything for causes that matter more than individual survival. And you believe this would be beneficial to the council? Asked the speaker. Zixara thought about Marcus walking calmly into lethal radiation to save alien children he had never met. She thought about his explanation of hope as an irrational but necessary emotion. She thought about his belief that the universe would kill them all eventually, so they might as well make it work for the privilege. Honored Speaker, she said finally, I believe it is necessary. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Delegates argued about the implications of accepting a species that operated outside normal behavioral parameters. Some worried that human irrationality would destabilize council decision-making. Others suggested that human unpredictability might be exactly what the galaxy needed to solve long-standing problems. When the vote was finally called, Marcus was asked to make a final statement on behalf of his species. He stood up slowly, still weak from radiation exposure, and walked to the center platform. For a moment he simply looked around the chamber at the dozens of alien faces watching him. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but clear. Honored delegates, you have spent the day debating whether humans can be trusted with the responsibilities of council membership. That is a fair question. We are a young species with much to learn about galactic civilization. Marcus paused, gathering his thoughts. But I would like to ask you a different question. What do you hope to accomplish as a galactic community? Are you trying to build the safest possible civilization, where every decision is based on minimizing risk? Or are you trying to build the best possible civilization, where every decision is based on maximizing what we can achieve together? He gestured toward the viewing windows where stars burned in the distance. The galaxy is vast and full of wonders we have not yet discovered. It is also full of dangers we have not yet faced. We can spend our energy building walls to protect ourselves from the unknown, or we can spend our energy exploring what lies beyond those walls. Humans have lived our entire existence on the edge of extinction. We have learned that safety is temporary but growth is permanent. We cannot promise that we will make safe decisions, but we can promise that we will make decisions aimed at helping the galaxy become more than it is today. Marcus looked directly at Zixara. You asked me why I am not afraid. The answer is that I am terrified every moment of every day, but I am more afraid of wasting the time we have been given than I am of losing that time. He walked back to his seat without waiting for a response. The chamber remained silent for several minutes as delegates considered his words. When the vote was finally taken,